I mean, the fact that I spoiled this whole thing, like, does anyone want to go back and play it now?
I think it's still kind of, yeah, because there's a lot of... I felt like there was puzzles that I saw that I never even got to. Like, I was wandering around the beach and I found, like, one triangle puzzle. It looked like an easy puzzle. It was just a line and a triangle. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what the triangles were. And I tried every single thing I could get to work, and now I know how the triangles work.
Yeah.
I kind of want to wander to the beach again and go back to that.
Yeah.
I think, like knowing the environment puzzles in the game, I think that makes me want to actually play it.
Yeah.
Right. I haven't played the game before.
Yeah.
That just makes me more curious about it.
When you ask whether we would play the game or not, having it been spoiled, I haven't played it at all. I just wanted to vicariously play it. One of the things I'm interested in what you feel about it is solving the puzzles the point of the game? Like, I don't know how much is gated off by puzzle solving, but like when you showed the map and it was like the desert ruins, it was like, I wonder what that looks like in this engine. And you're like, the shipwreck, I'm like, I wonder what that looks like in this engine. And is it really the experience like, no, I must, get to the bottom of this. I must solve this. Or is there just like the walking simulator DNA where it's like, let me just hang out in the hole?
To that I would say that the island itself is full of like imagery that you could just enjoy. That's not actually part of any like puzzles, which I didn't include in this presentation, but I wanted to. Imagery, I guess we can look at. So there's a lot of like just hidden images all over the place. So like this is like there's a giant like lady that's like reaching up into the sky on the mountain, and then there's this like cage, and then there's like a smaller woman like just like reaching down, and then if you like situate yourself correctly, then they're both like holding hands, and there's like stuff like this all over the island. There's like a guy who's juggling in the town square. There's like this something that like spilled on the floor that kind of just looks like a monster. You're like wearing a crown if you stand in the right shadow. You're wearing wings.
It reminds me of Pompeii.
Yep.
And I think it's kind of interesting because those memories are, just lost forever, sort of frozen in time. And I feel like, maybe this is a bit forward to assume, but their team had to be inspired by that just based on how people were laid out, especially the guy making the puzzle.
Yeah,
it looks like the Mediterranean also.
The one that kind of got me is like there's a guy taking a picture. Like one looks like a statue, and then there's a statue of a guy taking a picture of that.
Oh.
That made it look like...
That's cool.
Maybe these were people at one point and not statues.
They all got frozen in time. This one's my favorite. There's like these roots that are just kind of growing out of the wall, and then if you look at the reflection in the pond, there are two koi fish. Right there. It's just pretty to look at. Oh yeah, so there's one bunker.
This
is what you were talking about. You're like, there's a stick in the window, and I don't know what it means. It's just a tree. Oh, this one I didn't even see. Oh my god!
What?
So if you're riding around on the boat, I guess.
Oh my god!
Right?
So that's the entire part of the huge part of the island.
Yeah. I don't know where you have to stand in order to see this.
That's so much more colossal than all the other little
That's
tricks.
Amazing.
That seems like, wow, okay, so the entire island is this praying woman.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that's way more significant, I feel like.
I was super into hearing Jonathan Blow talk about how he tried to make a game that had as little distraction as possible.
Yes.
And that was just as completely straightforward, almost pure information. If you think the game of chess versus the game of Sorry, or the game of chess versus the game of Monopoly. Monopoly has a bit of a plot and has a bit of a narrative to help you through, which reminds me of the first video of the connections thing that was talking about how art and literature and stuff is easier to understand than science because science is just information. And there was something Jonathan Blow said. He said something like, I love seeing people figure something out in the game, and when somebody is like, "Hey, what's that?" Like to put it in words is such a because that's not the language you've been speaking the whole
Right,
time.
yeah.
And I think that in itself is such a precious experience to like have something that like in itself is something that can only be experienced in that game. When you try and translate it, you might come up against different friction or whatever that makes you realize stuff about your own language.
And I wonder, like, how was the marketing for this game? Because it's hard to explain what the game is. You have to play the game to know what the game is. So, like, how did he get, like, drum up excitement for this? And it was probably, like, his legacy of, like, making this cool game Braid. He probably just leveraged that in order to get people to buy this. Another interesting thing, because I watched that video too, was he was talking about how he had to, like, originally the game had, like, buttons and levers that also did stuff, and eventually he did away with that because he realized that people were, like, looking for buttons and levers all over the place, like, where they shouldn't be, so he was like, I need to make it apparent that only drawing lines will affect the world around you. And then another thing that happened was, like, the designers of the world were, like making really cool stuff, and he would look at it, and he'd be like, yeah, this looks really cool, but make it more boring, because it's too distracting. Because, you know, it's really easy, like, the game itself is, like, very beautiful already, but I can only imagine what it looked like before he told everyone to make everything more boring.
Oh, I was just going to ask, has anyone ever seen Forbidden Planet from 1956?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, it's so cool in this room. Like, no one knows that movie. Okay, you know the part with the Krell? The Krell's like this ancient race that's brought up in the movie. It's not really ruining anything if I say that. But there's a very brief scene where Morbius, who's one of the characters, has learned everything he can about the Krell without ever having engaged with them. They've been gone for like 1,000 years. But there are these super complex puzzle patterns that he has to do just casually in this experience that open up these doors to other spaces within this underground world. And a lot of the environmental design of that and the sets, and specifically these super impressive matte paintings, are replicated in parts of this game, which are really cool. That one part where you draw out the giant purple line you have to walk on is, like, I could bring up the exact mat within Forbidden Planet, and you'll be like, oh, this is totally that thing.
Really?
And the Krell patterns that you do are in this, like, weird compass style that Morbius notices there's no patterns on it, and because he's been researching them for, like, decades, he can just easily do it, but it's all based on light patterns that aren't there unless you tap specifically in the right pattern. So it's all memorization, but I feel like James or Jonathan Blow had to have watched this or, like, really taken it to heart because it's so obvious, the connection. Yeah.
Robin?
That's why I was waiting for the big reveal where it's like, oh, okay, this is an ancient civilization.
I thought it was too.
Yeah, and these statues are their remnants. You're gonna learn this secret, and that's where the title really.
Oh yeah, we didn't discuss
gets
why is it
me.
called The Witness.
Because it implies that you are the witness to something. You literally go into this space like, I am the witness, I will see what happened, and I will tell people about it. And it's not that at all. So that is why it's like, I wonder if he is trying to prime you to approach it as, like, you know, that you're doing archaeology, you know, and then it's something else entirely.
It's a just giant troll piece.
Another way of looking at it is maybe it is meant to prime you for that, but not that it's just totally a trick to laugh at you, haha, I made you think this, but make you think, oh, maybe I was expecting to witness something other than what I was actually meant to witness. And maybe like the environmental puzzles is like that it makes you observe your environment in a more attentive way than usual.
Yeah, it's kind of like you were witnessing it the whole time.
And I also think of, like, the word witnessing as, like, basically telling people about something, right?
Yeah.
Like, so, like, if we're talking about the game, essentially we're witnessing. We're witnesses.
I thought he was just trying to describe how much wit he has. The game's all about his wit.
Oh, I like that.
What about this is a pretentious comment. What about the really cool practice by Jesuits in, like, the 1600s of mind palaces? Because this whole thing, does anyone know what a mind palace is? It is a mind palace. So mind palaces are really, really cool there was a group of Jesuits studying memorization, and they took this around and sort of used it as an educational tool that they would preach and practice as missionaries. And don't quote me on the exact dates when they were doing this, but you can look it up. There's tons of research. It's psychology. Basically, you get really, really great and really detailed at visualizing a physical space in your brain. But you build it yourself. It can be inspired by another place, your home, a palace, because they encourage you to think as big as possible. But you get it down to the point where you know how many tiles are on the floor. And then you can lock pieces of information, secrets, data, information about yourself, information about, for them, even your own spirituality, like aspects of your soul, whatever, into different rooms in this palace with extremely detailed combinations. And what it would allow you to do is free your mind so that you could actually get closer to God. So that you could put parts of your brain, you could compartmentalize, basically, parts of your brain, but then because you're visual detailing, and they have these insane maps that they drew out of their own palaces. And it's actually interesting. I also work in mixed reality, so I work in AR and VR, which is why I got hyped about the AR version of this. And I totally actually texted a friend of mine who's a game dev and an AR dev, and I was like, have you played The Witness? We need to talk next week. So that'll be really fun.
Awesome.
Anyway,
I think this would also be a good VR game.
that would be actually a fascinating VR game. Ooh. I'm so very excited. Tweets at Jonathan Blow forever. Well, what was it?
So would you say that this is Jonathan Blow's Mind Palace?
Yes, and the reason I also bring that up is in trying to get to know, sort of based on your comment from before, trying to get to know what is the rationale behind this, and not that it's a giant joke, even though there's obviously a lot of humor in this, and a lot of language and communication, but that he's pulling from so many references, and I think that this is kind of a study in where he places those references in his brain, that he can access, say, Shot in the Dark here, but access his own selfhood and his own reflections so that his conflict and contrast between science and spirituality is not necessarily blocking him from just existing. So to be able to have this space that he designed, that he can put this here in this theater, and this here in this windmill, and this here, whatever, as a visual and not physical representation, but to actually build out a physicality of an environment allows him to just exist. So maybe this is actually a giant study in trying to free his mind.
He's trying to get closer to God.
Maybe. Or trying to get closer to himself or whatever it is. I bring up God because that was the original purpose of it. But this idea that, and your brain can do it, the human brain is incredible. If you can compartmentalize, you can go back and imagine these crazy patterns in the hallways you built and everything so that you can reserve that information and clear space for yourself. Go research them. They're super crazy. They're awesome.
It's definitely interesting in light of seeing that one whole side of this island is a praying or meditating person.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's on the other side. I don't know.
Yeah.
I gotta find where that is.
Great.
I'm so happy to end our conversation on this note.
Yeah, thank you so much for